Welcome to Hardheaded Podcast. We're excited that you've joined us as we have a conversation. We found that a good conversation allows us to share what's on our mind, whether current events, what's grinding our gears, or our pet peeves.
It also allows us to share our top 3, a list of our favorite things on any given subject, most of which are highly opinionated. In closing, we share a good word. Solid friendships are encouraging. Even if we joke and give each other a hard time, our ultimate responsibility is to uplift each other.
Our goal is that you'll feel like you're part of the conversation, like you were in the studio with us, and that you feel encouraged after tuning in to our podcast. It's time to join the conversation.
Okay, welcome to Hardheaded Podcast. I'm your host, Chet Sears.
Pastor Sears over there.
We've got Troy with us, and Matt is out of town. So we have our guest host returning, Chris Broughton, calling from Louisiana. Good to have you, Chris.
Good to be here. Good to be here again.
Welcome to the show, Chris.
So we've got quite a bit. We're gonna on the agenda today. Troy's gonna tell us what's on his mind. I hope it's not a crappy subject. Little foreshadow.
Yeah.
We're gonna tell you our top 3 TV actors, and then I'll close out with a good word on anxiety.
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm excited about our top 3 and discussions we're going to get into on that.
Should be pretty good. All right, Troy, why don't you lead us off?
All right, so I was actually listening to last week, our episode, and you talk about anxiety. I'm glad you're going to touch on that today because it brings me a level of anxiety of what's going on in this nation.
Okay.
And with the government and everything. Yeah. Like I can't sleep.
Because of me?
No, I mean, not because of you.
Because I enlightened you?
Because you've enlightened me and what's going on
right
in the state of the affairs and the state of the union. Like I've turned off news and media. I think I've said that on the show here before. Yeah. I've turned that off, right? Uh-huh. And then when we do a podcast, sometimes it gets back into that.
Yeah.
Which is great because I need to know it. And
right.
I always tell people, like, hey, I find all my news and stuff I need from the Hardheaded Podcast because those guys, they dig into it.
Right.
And so it just brings a level of anxiety that I don't need in my life.
I hope those people also don't only listen to Hardheaded Podcast for news because they're going to be way let down.
Right.
But,
well, I mean, wouldn't you say it's good to listen to, if you listen to Fox News, it's probably good to listen to a little CNN or a little this or that.
Yeah, don't listen to one source for anything.
Right.
Other than the Bible for eternal purposes.
Right, absolutely. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so thinking about that over the weekend, and I wanted to come in today to record something that's a little lighthearted.
Okay.
Something a little more, but it's a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be a little bit more lighthearted. And so here's the story. A couple weeks ago, I was at a networking event. I go to it every week. And after it was over, I walked into the restroom and
did you eat some gas station sushi?
No, it wasn't me. So, if I drink water a lot, I have to pee. I've been known for running out of this podcast because I've had to pee.
You got to go to the bathroom. Yeah.
So usually,
small bladder.
Exactly.
Tinkle bell.
I like 3-shot better than Tinkle Bell, so let's not go there. But yeah, so I really had to go because I didn't, stayed throughout the whole meeting. I really had to go. So I busted in the bathroom and I run to the urinal and,
start your business.
Begin to flow.
Yeah.
And before I know it, like this overwhelming, sensation hits me, and it's a bad one. And it's the smell lingering coming over from the stalls.
There's somebody in the stall.
I don't even think there was somebody in there.
No.
I think it had been left over.
Okay.
So
Did you investigate?
I couldn't stay in there long enough, Chad.
It was
I had
that
to
bad.
get out.
It was that bad.
I had to get out.
Yeah.
It brought me to almost nausea.
Yeah.
Like I didn't.
That's bad.
And it's when you're peeing, it's like impossible to stop, right? Unless dire circumstances.
Right.
But my goodness, man, I thought I was gonna die. before I left that bathroom.
Like the worst you've ever smelled, possibly?
The absolute close to the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, there's been some bad ones. Like public restrooms in general are places I like to avoid.
Yeah.
Like, in general.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. If you tell me somebody that doesn't try to avoid public restrooms, I've got a problem with that person.
That's true.
Typically.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have to use one, you have to use one, but it's not like, ooh, I'm glad I'm traveling.
That's right. I get to use a public restroom today.
They're not optimal, but you can't fear them.
Right. I mean, if you got to go, you got to go. Unless you have a really good friend of whom maybe you lived with them at one point in time, and you're driving on your way home from work and you realize you have to stop, and you're like, well, I'm not going to go to a public restroom. I will use the house key that I still have
yes,
and go to their house and use their bathroom.
I feel like that was not home from work. That was leaving a buffet at Hong Kong City.
So our listeners that are out there, that's actually something that Broughton did. He jumped in, he's like, oh, just so you know, I popped in your house the other day and went to the bathroom. Like, what?
That's awesome. I would do that at all costs, before going into public restroom.
Yeah.
Anywhere. Yeah. So today, I mean, I want to propose something to the people listening, because I think this happens more often than not. You walk into a restroom and there are people in there and it smells to high heaven.
Yeah. There
is a way around this.
Okay, what is it? You carry one of those little poopery spray bottles with you everywhere you go?
No. It's called the courtesy flush. Are you familiar?
I know the courtesy flush, but is that like a solution? Like, it doesn't resolve the issue.
It helps.
It improves it.
It improves the situation tremendously.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, but sometimes you need to view the product. And so a courtesy flush before the product is viewed is not optimal.
But I think when you're in a public restroom, you don't need to be viewing the product. You need to be getting your business done and down that pipe as soon as possible.
I don't know, though. Like, this,
you want to monitor your health to the maximum, to the best you can. You need to view the product.
And maybe you need a second opinion. I mean, you got to leave it there for somebody else. So.
And that's happened before too, plenty of times.
In the dorm, like that was routine in the dorm.
Yeah, I could see that happening in a dorm, in a frat house, in a wherever.
Yeah, well, maybe those people just haven't grown up yet. There's just still.
I think that's probably half of the problem.
Yeah,
bunch of boys out there just leaving their poop everywhere.
That could be it. Is this not a problem in a women's restroom?
I don't know. I think we need to ask our listeners to help us out and let us know. If this is a problem in the ladies' restroom.
Could you, honey, what are you doing over there? Well, I was just listening to this podcast and I'm responding to the the question about whether or not we leave something in the women's restroom toilets.
I bet they don't. I bet they practice the courtesy flush all the time.
I don't know. So, I mean, there's levels of anxiety that you can have with the courtesy flush. A public restroom, not so much.
I have more anxiety
because it's industrial.
It's
but
true.
If you're at like a neighbor's house, like what if it stops up on the courtesy flush?
Now listen.
Like, what do you do after that?
No, I have a solution for that. The first thing you do, you flush the toilet before you sit down to make sure it's got a good flow going through it.
Okay.
Because if not,
an investigatory flush.
Yes,
a good strategy.
Exactly.
I'm writing that down.
I'll tell you what.
Investigatory.
That came up because one time I sat down and I flushed it, and it started coming back up on me. Like I was doing my courtesy flush.
Yeah.
And it started coming back up, and I was like, "There's no way. There's no way
this is happening."
That what I did stopped it up. There's no way.
They have a weak system.
Yeah. So,
but it doesn't matter. You're getting blamed for it.
Right. But, I mean, the way around that is to
make sure. No.
Do your invest. What'd you say, Broughton?
Investigatory.
Investigatory flush.
Do that flush.
But the problem is, you're in there. It's not because it's a convenient time. It's because you have to go.
That's true.
So what happens? Investigatory flush comes back. Hey, this is not optimal. Do you just abort and go home? Like, or do you
go to the next stall?
But if you're at somebody's house,
oh, well, then
you're like, I'm out. I got to go.
I don't know.
Well, if they have a weak system, they have to be prepared for the consequences.
Well, if they have a weak system, I'm guessing they probably got a plunger in that bathroom somewhere.
That's true.
I mean, I've never been to Troy's house, but if he has a weak system and I dominate it, I'm going to walk out there and say, Troy, I'm sorry. I didn't know you had a weak system, but my house is, 300-400 miles away from here. You're going to have to deal with this.
So you're leaving. You're not even. You're going to plunge it if he has a plunger in there, or you're just going to say, "Hey, you're going to have to go do that." I'm your guest.
I always make an attempt with a plunger.
Okay.
But if you have a restroom that is likely to be used by guests, you need to have plenty of supplies, a plunger, and a good system. And if you can't meet those expectations, you don't need to have guests.
You know what? I'm in that scenario right now.
Really?
Like right now, our guest bathroom it just doesn't do it. Like it's got problems.
The one upstairs.
You need to handle that.
Yeah. But I also am going out on faith that my guests won't do that at my house.
It's going to happen.
But like the guest bathrooms are not in a great place for you to go.
Right.
Like you don't want to do that in there.
No.
Yeah. That's basically.
It's right down the hall from where everybody is.
There's like an unwritten contract. You're only going number one at my house.
Is this upstairs guests or basement guests?
Upstairs guests.
Upstairs.
Okay, because if I'm ever in your house, I'm not even upstairs is not an option for me.
No.
Yeah,
no.
me either.
Basement.
I'm going downstairs.
Yeah. I mean, out of principle anyway.
Right.
You guys are both basically family anyway. So you go,
Yeah.
You're just like, well, I don't even need to tell you what I'm doing or ask where it is. I'm just going to disappear for a few minutes here.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you another thing on the public side versus the home. There's not good ventilation in public restrooms.
Oh, no.
At all.
No.
Whereas the home restrooms are much more much better ventilated.
Yeah. Well, you got those fans. I swear my wife keeps one running all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ours are on a timer.
That's
So
what
you
I
could-
need to
you could-
install.
You can walk
those.
away and
Yeah.
it'll eventually, it'll turn off.
Yeah, we had those in our last house. This house does not have those. We need those.
So I have a friend, actually it's a mutual friend of mine in Broughton's that had a scenario. I think he was working like yard work or something, but he, went and no plunger, weak system, but he had to go. And this thing was not going down. And he didn't know what to do, because he couldn't just leave it there. It was like one of these that's just hanging out, like at the top. It's not like it disappeared and then clogged something up.
Yeah.
So he got to look. He kind of panicked, and he's like, "Well, I can't just leave this here. This is the first time I'm on this job. I think it was yard work, and this was like a pool house or something. They may not come back in here for a long time. I just don't know what to do." So he started tearing apart all the cabinets, and he ended up finding like the long dishwasher rubber gloves.
No. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, Broughton? Like the dishwasher gloves, the big rubber gloves that go up above your wrist.
Does this guy's name rhyme with Chance Gerard?
No.
Okay, I thought okay.
No, it's it rhymes with Babe Laughlin.
Okay.
So anyway, he proceeds to put one of the gloves on. He didn't use both of them. One of the gloves on, and like broke this down into smaller pieces.
Oh gosh. Why did he go get a stick from outside?
I'm just telling you what's going on here. You can't leave You can't leave your post. Like you can't walk out. If you walk away, somebody else could walk in.
That's true.
So he broke everything down, and then problem solved on the apparatus side of things. But then what do you do with the glove? This wasn't a disposable glove. And so
Dude, you take it with you, man.
They
just make them think they lost
He was going through this entire process. You know, he's like, I just got to get this down. And then when he got done, he's like, oh no, what do I do now? There's evidence. So he
washed it off.
He turned it inside out and threw it back under the sink cabinet there. Yeah.
Did he at least rinse it off?
I don't know. Probably.
Oh man.
Anyway.
Oh.
Because you can't leave. You can't leave it. You got to stay until it's done. Like if you're at somebody's house and that goes wrong, like you can't walk out and be like, well, I got to go think about this and come back later.
So we had in middle school, I think it was middle school or high school, one of the church camps we went to.
Yeah.
We discovered, somebody left their post because we discovered the largest turd I've ever seen in my life.
No way.
Still to this day, the largest.
No way.
No, I'm not kidding. We took pictures of it. It was that impressive.
How did you have cameras? You have digital cameras or film cameras?
We had those
back
click and
click like the disposable cameras.
Yeah, we had those for church camps.
Yeah,
yeah.
So do you still have this picture?
I'm sure one of us has it somewhere.
Lord. Because I just
would you like to see it?
No. Well, I mean, you're saying it's the largest ever. I may have some stories of some comparisons that were probably. That could possibly put that to shame.
Well, your last story, you were saying that it didn't go down; it was just staying on top. This one was hanging out.
I don't think, man.
Like of the lip or of the water?
The lip. I'm not kidding. I got people that back me up.
Was the other end of it hidden?
Yes.
Golly.
Massive. Massive. And the funny thing about the whole story is, we were convinced. No shadow of a doubt that it was our youth minister.
Yeah, you're like, this is an adult. this is an adult here.
He never outwardly denied it, but he didn't admit to it either. And so that gave us all like, oh, well, it's him. It's got to be him.
Yeah.
And I think he did that to just save embarrassment for whoever it was. Years later. That's a man of God right there. That's right. Years later, the guy who actually took the dump came out and confessed and was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, that was me."
No way. Had he not gone for weeks or what? Like,
yeah, I think that's what he explained it. He was just backed up and
it all broke free.
Incredible.
It was like just a snake.
And I think he had a level of anxiety.
I would
that
too.
Thing, when he saw that thing and it wouldn't flush, I think he just ran.
How did that? Physics. There's no way it was over the lip.
It was over the lip.
So
by about 2 inches.
He was standing up?
Had to have been. Had to have been.
You gotta be kidding me.
I'm not kidding. I will tell you this too. Nobody would break that joker up. So that's why I said the stick. So I went outside and I got a stick because that's the only toilet we had in the bunk. We're like, we got to use this thing.
Was this at Camp Bethany?
No, it was a different camp.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I went and got a stick, had to break that thing up. Finally got it to go down.
What'd you do with the stick?
Threw it outside. I mean, we were in some forest place, Yeah.
How did you go from a turd breaker to somebody that fears public restrooms?
Yeah, that's a good question. What happened in your life to make you anxious?
Probably that. Probably that experience alone. I think you hit it on the head there.
Or is it the...
No, so the anxiety I have about restrooms is when I sit down in there, it has to be completely empty or I can't go.
Did you live in the dorms ever, or were you frat house from day one?
I lived in the dorms for half a year.
Just 6 months?
Okay.
Were you in Carruthers or Nielsen?
Nielsen.
Because
dorms toughen you up if you're in there long enough.
Did they have like full stalls when you were in Nielsen, or did they have the half walls?
I think full stalls.
Oh, dude.
But
we started out with the half walls.
It was half walls. So
our frat house didn't even have walls. It had 3 open toilets.
Just 3 open toilets?
Yeah.
So what'd you do?
Try to go in there when it wasn't anybody in there, but people would come in.
You're like, hey.
Some of my frat brothers would be like, hey man, I'm going to take a dump. You want to go? Like they would go together and go take a dump. Like that drove me crazy all the time. I'm like, no, and like the first year, so the president of my first year, he ended up being my big brother, and I moved in with him downstairs in the frat house.
Yeah.
Well, he had his own bathroom, so that's kind of how it got around that.
Oh. Well, I don't know if we ever called. I was on the 10th floor. Broughton, you were on the, what floor were you on? 8th or 11th?
I was on 10th the first year, 11 the next
11. You were a floor
years.
up. So
Yeah.
my sophomore year is when Broughton and I got to know each other real well. But like there, I don't know if we ever called up the 11th floor, but I do know, like my roommate JD, like there was like, dude, you got to go in there. you got to go in there. And the phrase, and this is what interests me about the physics of the over the lip.
Yeah.
But the phrase beached a whale.
Yes.
That came from there. It's like, I beached a whale. It's all the way out. So,
Oh man.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we ever called you down like, hey, you have to come down to the 10th floor and check this out. I don't know if there's any of that.
I don't think that happened.
Yeah.
Oh man.
The problem I had with the dorms, that wasn't that bad. One of the benefits that you had, because that was like the showers were also there. So there's like this conglomeration of odors.
Right.
But the people that use the elevators as a urinal, like that,
Ugh.
that is
Yeah, that's
hard to put up with. In fact, talk about flashbacks. Just the other day, I got on an elevator, and it was one of those Otis elevators that was the same vintage of the Nielsen elevators, and I was like, why doesn't it smell like pee? This should smell like pee. It's like the same wood paneling, the metal. I was just like, man, this should smell like pee.
That's pretty funny.
I remember my Nielsen days.
Yeah. So yeah, just level of anxiety being in there, and I think it's just being around other people. I think it's just a level of vulnerability, even with a stall around.
You're not able to fend off an attack. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. Never happened.
Because everybody does it.
I know, and that's yeah.
It's funny that you're talking about this because today, this morning, one of my coworkers, he's got some young kids, like preschool age, and he showed me this video from last night, and his son is running around like crazy, like laughing, and then he showed him that, and then he pans over with his phone, taking video, and there's like a two turds in this little boy's sister's shoe. And he was like laughing because he just dropped him in the shoe of his sister and thought he was like really proud. And then we're like, man, the aiming capability that this kid has, like that kid's
So
talented.
is this kid potty training or something, or
No, he's past it. Like he knows what he's doing.
Oh, wow.
And he's just like, yeah, watch this.
how old's his sister?
Yeah, younger. Like I had 2.5 probably.
Oh well, she won't be too traumatized.
No, well, the parents were like upset because
Right.
but then,
it's pretty funny. Yeah.
like, and then we kind of joked about like this kid already lives in a frat house. He's like,
Yes.
anyway.
Oh man.
All right. Well, I think you got anything else to say?
No,
about
I think
this?
well. I need to define a courtesy flush. I think I need to do
Okay.
that just for our listeners.
So go for
So
it.
you can do your.
We know what the investigatory flush is already.
Yeah, I can't even say that, but that flush is to make sure that everything is going to go down and go down smooth. All right. So then the courtesy flush is after you drop a load.
The first one, or you have to wait till you're all the way done.
I would flush on the first one.
Okay.
You drop a load, flush. Courtesy flush.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of the smell with it. If you drop a second load, flush
Do it
again.
Dude, the water conservation people are going to be upset with your process here because we're already talking 3 flushes, and you're not even done yet. You hadn't even got to the paperwork.
Well, sorry.
See, I'm against the courtesy flush. I need to view the product, the complete product.
I think you can view the product when you go at home.
And I save my flushes for paper to prevent clogging. So
Yeah, and if you happen to have to use too much paper, flush.
Happen to use too much paper. You just don't use too much paper.
Well, I mean, if you have a beached whale, you might have to use a lot of paper.
Hey, if you're going to make something like that, there's nothing left. Like, it didn't touch anything going down.
That's true. Oh man.
Yeah,
But
this
yeah,
is the
so-
exact opposite of what did we talk about last week?
Social credit.
Social
Social
credit.
credit. This is the exact opposite of social
Yes.
credit system. Unless you get points deducted for not flushing in a public restroom.
Or for too many flushes. Could go either way.
This is pitiful.
Well, I hope that was lighthearted enough, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much so.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to take a commercial break, come back with our top 3 TV actors.
At Admiral's Pennant, our mission is to offer the latest and refined, high-quality masculine products and services to the modern gentleman, as well as provide him with the tools and products necessary to look, act, and feel confident in his appearance and social interactions. Check it out at admiralspennant.com. Without it, you might as well shave.
And we are back.
All right. Took a little bathroom break.
Did you follow protocol? Oh, my gosh.
Absolutely.
Okay, top 3 TV actors. I'm going to start. And we'll see where we end up. There may be some overlap here. I got a
Possibly.
funny feeling about
I
this.
know there's definitely overlap.
I got a funny feeling about this. Is that the quote from Star Wars?
I got a bad feeling.
I got a bad feeling about
Close
this.
enough.
Yeah.
I know there'd be overlap with Matt and mine if he was here,
Yeah.
but we'll see. Go for it.
All right. Number 3, Tom Selleck.
Haha, Magnum PI.
Well, I like him in Blue Bloods more than Magnum
okay.
PI, but you could bring out his whole, other than I'm not too fond of the Friends deal. He should have just kept that out of his whole career when he was on Friends.
He dated, did he date one
Monica.
of them? Monica, that's right.
So other than that, but I mean, I like Blue Bloods. That's a good show. And
you had that in common with my mom.
He's just a great, and my mom was a big fan of Blue Bloods, and my wife is a big fan of Blue Bloods.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I just like it. Like good character, good, strong actor.
Yep.
Number 2, Jason Alexander. Do you know who that is?
I specifically didn't put anybody from Seinfeld on my list because I knew I thought they were going to be 3, 2, 1 on yours.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
You know who that is, Broughton?
Oh yeah, I know who George is.
Yeah, George Costanza.
yeah.
From Broadway. Like as far as the actors that go that were on Seinfeld, he's like very legit and executed.
Speaking of George, I always practice the Costanza.
Oh, so there's a Seinfeld episode about using the bathroom. There's several actually.
I bet so.
There's one, and this is not the one Broughton's talking about, but there's one where he is at a bookstore, and bookstore or library is a bookstore, and he takes a book into the bathroom. Like, might as well read while I have to go.
Yeah.
And then they flag him. And they make him buy the book. The book that he had was extremely expensive. So then he argues about it, and then he ends up having to pay for it. But then he's like, I'm going to return it. Well, then they realized they had marked it to where it was a bath. Somebody had held it while they were sitting on the toilet.
Oh, no.
But what Broughton's talking about is taking your shirt off. Like he takes his shirt off to do his business. And he accidentally he was at a party and forgot to put his shirt back on. So he walked out of the bathroom without a shirt on.
His shirt.
Yeah.
George.
So that's allows some freedom for you there, I guess, Broughton.
Oh yeah. Freedom of movement.
Make yourself at home.
Even at Target.
That's why they have the hooks on the back of the door.
I thought that's for
the
your
Costanza.
European carry-all?
no, for your backpack.
No.
Yeah, whatever.
If you carry people that carry, never mind.
So anyway, I really do. His acting is just, I love it. It's phenomenal. He did a great job in Seinfeld. Number 1, Bryan Cranston.
Yes.
For his role
Walter
as
White.
Tim Whatley
What?
on Seinfeld.
Walter White.
Curveball. He had a recurring role on Seinfeld as the dentist, Tim Whatley.
I do remember that vaguely.
Yeah, because then he converted to Judaism and started telling jokes, and then Jerry started telling anti-dental jokes, so he called Jerry an anti-dentite. Yes.
Oh, that's good.
But if you want to look at his work, Tim Whatley, Malcolm in the Middle's dad, Hal, I think was his name, and then Walter White, naturally. What a broad, what do you call that?
Spectrum
catalog of work.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not artsy.
He's one of my favorite actors because he can just play so many different roles. Like I think I've said,
different roles too.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a dad that's barely in control, or I'm cooking meth.
Yeah. It's like Gary Oldman. He's one of my favorite actors. He just plays different roles so well.
Yeah.
That when you see him in a movie, it's like, oh, that's who that is, or
right.
It's not like, oh, it's a Harrison Ford movie, or oh, it's a Tom Cruise movie, because they're kind of the same.
Yeah. Like
Tom
Cruise always runs in all of his movies, and Harrison Ford always plays this stoic,
Yeah, he always plays the lead stoic whatever role, and they always kind of play the same role.
Yeah,
I guess what I'm trying to say.
Although, in The Fugitive, Harrison Ford was not all put together. He did good in that one.
Yeah, and he had one regarding Henry. He did pretty good in that different role, but for the most part.
So anyway, that's my number one, Tim Whatley.
Tim Whatley.
That's
pretty good.
Broughton, fire away, man.
Okay, guys. Well, first I want to talk about my parameters a little bit. There were a lot of guys who have had great runs, but to me in this one, I wanted to use or to name people who had more than one good run. Multiple great shows was kind of a prerequisite for me.
Okay.
So that's why, like James Gandolfini for Sopranos or Jim Parsons for The Big Bang Theory, while they're great, I mean, they're really kind of...
But they're great in that show.
Right.
So were you great in multiple shows?
Well, yeah, right. I kind of had the same...
So I created a new category. I'm breaking ground here today.
Yeah.
I have my top three. I have some honorable mentions.
Okay.
But beyond my honorable mentions, I have noted actors, and it's Gandolfini and Parsons are my honorable notations.
All right.
Which are below honorable mentions. So those are my two honorable notations.
Yeah. Okay.
Honorable
notations.
Yes. Now, some honorable mentions that I felt like I needed to bring up.
Yeah.
Were Ted Danson, because he had Cheers, he had Becker, and even later on he had CSI. But I just feel like Cheers was obviously great, and Becker is so underrated. I love Becker.
Becker was a really good show. I never saw him in CSI.
He was popular.
Yeah.
Sherman. Okay, go ahead.
He was kind of the same character though in both of those, right? Becker and
Cheers, he was a bartender. Yeah, he was kind of grumpy in both, but Sam Mayday Malone and Dr. Becker are different guys, even if they have somewhat the same personality.
But probably why he made just your honorable mentions though.
Right. Okay, yeah. Another honorable mention is Sherman Hemsley, All in the Family, The Jeffersons, and Amen. Three great shows. And
nice.
When I was doing a little research, there was not a lot of, like in your top 50s and top 100s for TV, there was not a lot of black guys listed, but I thought he was definitely the one that stood out for me.
But of course, we're probably not going to talk about Bill Cosby because he's a creep, but I growing up, my TV of the 80s, 90s, there were a lot of black actors that were prominent.
Will Smith.
I felt like there was a lot.
He's kind
of
a jerk too.
Yeah, Sherman Hemsley never slapped anybody at the Oscars, but
right.
I felt like there was a lot of of movie stars that are black, but at least in the TV realm, I mean, like Red Fox only had his one good show, and but I just Sherman Hemsley stood out to me.
Yeah.
Dennis Franz had Hill Street Blues and NYPD Blues, another honorable mention.
Hill Street Blues was a fantastic show. Really good show. Yeah.
And I'm gonna do one more honorable mention.
You're pushing your luck here, man, because you broke new ground.
I'm a guest.
The guest host. You're a guest host.
And Mark Harmon, St. Elsewhere, Chicago Hope, and NCIS. He's had a great run on NCIS.
Yeah.
But here's my top 3.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Hold on. Hold on. I'm running out of ink in my pen, writing down all your list of things.
I think it already did run out.
I struggled with the ranking, but here's what I came up with.
Okay.
For number 3, I'm going to go with Andy Griffith.
Okay.
Maybe he's kind of old and maybe not very multidimensional, but the Andy Griffith Show, one of the all-time classics.
Yeah.
And Matlock is also awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I think I like Matlock better than the Andy Griffith Show.
I do, definitely.
His role.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I had to pick a show to watch right now, I'd probably pick Matlock, but they're both great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. My number 2 was William Shatner.
Okay.
Star Trek, T.J. Hooker.
Yes.
T.J. Hooker.
Boston Legal later.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He even hosted like Rescue 911 and.
Well, he did a lot of cameo stuff too.
Yeah,
as he got older.
Shatner just spanned many decades. He was in like
the
Twilight
60s.
Zone episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, he started in the 60s.
Right.
T.J. Hooker was the 80s.
Yes.
And so you're like, oh, this guy's been in it 20 years, but then he turned around and did, like you said, what was it, Boston Legal after that?
Yeah,
Or there's probably some other stuff.
In the 90s or 2000s.
Yeah, early 2000s maybe.
T.J. Hooker, he was just an action cop,
Yeah.
And so Shatner, Captain Kirk alone is awesome.
Right.
Overacting. He really wanted on this list.
Yeah. I got to be noticed by those hard-headed guys and their guest hosts.
The official
And my
overactor.
number 1 is probably, I wouldn't expect anybody else to name it. But even before he jumped out at me, before I started kind of making sure I didn't miss anybody, Michael Landon.
Yeah.
Okay.
On Bonanza,
Little
Joe.
what was that, Highway to Heaven?
Yeah, that
was later.
He started out on Bonanza. He was Little Joe, Ben Cartwright's kids, and then he had Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
He basically held the town together. And then Highway to Heaven, he was an angel.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah.
He died of cancer early. And if he wouldn't have died of cancer, he would have had another great show.
Probably one of the CSIs.
Right. CSI Seattle.
CSI Wichita. Who knows? But I just, when I look back at shows that I loved as a kid, and I went old, I didn't go new. I loved Bonanza, and Little House on the Prairie, and Highway to Heaven I didn't love so much because I was at an age where I didn't appreciate drama.
Yeah.
But I could appreciate he was awesome. He had great hair.
Nice and feathered.
Yeah, yes.
Did have some feathered hair.
And he fit that multiple mega hits for me.
Yeah.
And so, and I just feel like he outclasses, as great as like Jim Parsons, who's one of my notations, is a super great as Sheldon Cooper, but he just doesn't have the catalog of Michael Landon.
And maybe he will one day, but he doesn't have it now.
I think when he quit Big Bang Theory and he's going to go try to do other stuff, he's going to find that he was a one-trick pony as a goofy nerd.
Well, I'll tell you, it was time for him to quit, though. Like every show runs its course, and that one had run its course.
I think I've seen
they were
like
getting
2
older
episodes.
and stuff.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, just like Wonder Years, at some point, the plot that you came up with, people grow out of it.
Yeah.
And you just got to kill it. You just end it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think he forced their hand on that. So, I commend him.
Yeah, they're redoing the Wonder Years. You see that?
Nobody could come up with a new idea.
I know, it's ridiculous.
It's sad.
But
very sad. All right, good list.
That was a good list.
A lot of quality in that.
Well, when you name 30 people.
Yeah, you're bound to land on something.
And you create a new category, honorable notation.
Honorable notations. I'm going to mention this notation, but it's not an honorable mention.
That's right. All right,
Troy.
So number 3 is Dan I don't even know if I can say his name. Dan Castellaneta.
Okay, you're going to have to help me here.
Homer Simpson.
Oh my gosh, the voice actor.
The voice actor of Homer Simpson. And I picked him because Homer Simpson, man, I started watching him, back in 80 whatever, and they're still on TV today.
So I'm gonna side note my previous comment. Unless it's a cartoon, you can stay with it forever.
Right.
So you don't have to end it.
Exactly. They don't ever grow up.
Yeah. Them and South Park and there's a few other these long running cartoons.
That's a Matt Amos answer, like naming a pepper as your favorite fruit.
Oh, that's good.
But anyway, so you're just saying he's awesome because he does a good voice, or?
Yeah, I'm saying I liked Homer Simpson so much when I was a kid, just the Simpsons in general, and just them still going. That's incredible to me. I don't personally.
Does he do any of the other voices?
He does. He does a lot of the other
Okay.
ones. I didn't write them down, but he does a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does the cousin or the neighbor. What's his name?
Of the Simpsons?
Yeah. I can't think of it.
I don't know.
I all of a sudden I just got into Family Guy, and I was thinking about Family Guy.
That's another one that's gone on forever. Yeah, it'll hit me in a minute. But
Flanders.
Yeah, Flanders. Yeah.
Hi diddly-o.
He does that one and a handful of other ones
Yeah.
too. So, all right, number 2, Steve Carrell as Michael Scott.
Yeah, that's you and Matt.
That is one of my absolute favorite shows, The Office. And every episode, his character did something to make me cringe. So that's worthy. That's good acting. That's worthy.
He's good in the show.
And he's from a film perspective, he's ventured out and done some not comedy, totally opposite of what he was doing on TV.
Yeah, and he's done really well with it. Even with the morning show, that new show on Apple. Well, it's not new anymore. It's like 2 years old now.
Yeah.
But he did really good job in that show, and it's not funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a comedy. There's funny things.
He was nominated for an Oscar for some wrestling movie, wasn't he?
Not sure.
Like he was a coach, a wrestling coach?
Yeah, he was
I don't know.
like the rich guy that killed the wrestler, the DuPont guy.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, but
Yeah.
You know, like the DuPont chemical family, they're all rich, and one of them became like a wrestling patron, and he got weird and shot one of them.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Oh,
He
wow.
played that guy.
Yeah, and you're nominated for an Oscar. Don't slap anybody.
Nice. All right, at number 1, Bryan Cranston
I could tell that was on your list
as Walter White.
because you had all kinds of input on mine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the character, that's probably his portrayal of Walter White is probably
I would have to say
incredible.
that Bryan Cranston is the modern era of the type of actors that Broughton had on his top 3 from the foregone era.
I would say so. I would agree with that statement.
I've never watched an episode of Breaking Bad.
I don't even think you have to watch an episode. You could. I never watched the series, but you could watch some clips, like on YouTube, and be like, "Oh man, that guy is good."
Well, the transformation that he goes from season 1 all the way to the end of season 5 is just from this, teacher that's trying to
scared.
He's just a scared,
nervous,
scared,
doesn't know what he's
nerdy
doing,
teacher
and
that's
then he's like
trying to-
murdering people.
Yeah,
by
he's like
season
trying
5.
to make money for his family, and then he finds out he has cancer and he's gonna die. So now how's his family gonna go on?
Yeah.
And then by the end, he's like this big
Drug lord.
that it's incredible.
Yeah.
I love that show.
Not quite as good as his role as Tim Whatley on Seinfeld, but still good.
Yes. Very good. Yep. So that's my top 3.
Not bad. Not bad. This is a good category.
And I did some research like you did, Broughton, and I saw some of the people that you named in your mentions, and so either one, some of those shows I hadn't even seen, or two, it was just like a Sopranos. Like I liked that show, it was okay, but
it's so great. Sopranos is awesome.
I mean,
It makes me want to be a mobster. If I'd have been on last week, one of my dream jobs would have been mobster.
Yeah. Like what part of being a mobster is dreamy?
Whacking dudes.
For not doing the courtesy flush.
that's right.
He'd have come to me like, beef. This guy, he came to my house. He didn't do an investigatory flush or a courtesy flush. I'd be like, I'll take care of it.
You would
I'd send some guys to
tell
Troy's
me,
house and be like, you flushed with courtesy.
he would have asked first. You'd ask first. Did you have a plunger in said bathroom?
Were your facilities adequate? Don't make me look like a jerk.
That's good.
I think we ought to write a script for that.
I really like The Sopranos. I just didn't like the last, when they went to black.
Why not?
Yeah, the ending.
I just didn't like it. I wanted an ending. I didn't want to.
It was an ending.
It wasn't an ending.
That was the ending.
Well,
they foreshadowed that.
I feel like they got surrounded and they all died. That would have been a better ending for me.
That's what happened.
You don't know that.
Yes, he said there in previous episodes they were talking about what happens when you die. Like, and they're like the sound stops and everything turns black.
Oh.
Like he's like, oh, it was a conversation about light at the end of the tunnel, da da da, and he's like, no, it's no sound, lights out. And so that's exactly what happened at the end of the show to tell you,
Lights
hey,
out.
he died. They murdered him.
That's what I took from it.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that was the reasoning.
Yeah. You got it. It was subtle. It was not a.
And we were watching it live because we had parties every Sunday night to watch it, and it went black, and we were like, "What? Check the TV!" Like everybody else was like, "Check what happened? What happened?
Power's out.
Power, yeah." It just, I don't know, rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
I was like, man, what? Because you show that stuff, you show.
I don't know. I love a curveball like that.
I don't know.
Anyway, what's your stance on it, Broughton?
I didn't love it, but the ending a great show always sucks.
Yeah, that's true. Lost, horrible ending.
Like, I don't know how they're going to end The Walking Dead, but it's probably going to suck.
That's the problem.
Walking Dead to me ended like 3 seasons ago.
Like, I think
like they should have canned it.
Yeah, they're
that's
like,
what everybody says, but you got to push through because it's been awesome the last year or two.
But
I don't know, man. How can it be awesome without?
Just let an idea run out. Like, but I think people they have this idea for a story or a show, and all of a sudden it gets very successful, but their idea ran out. So how are we going to keep this going so we can keep making money?
They're making
The
money.
zombie apocalypse never ends.
It would if you were a mobster in the zombie apocalypse. You'd have had all the zombies whacked.
Well, everybody in there is kind of a mobster.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that a lot of shows just don't know how to end it. Like they just don't know how they're going out. And kudos to Sopranos. Like we're not going to have an episode where we tie up all the loose ends for our audience and have a good story here and a sad story there. They're like, no, this is how the mobster life is. You're sitting down at a diner with your family.
I'm fine with that.
And somebody walks in and whacks you.
Yeah, but they should have showed them getting whacked. They just showed them surrounding the building and then they're having a dinner. And
the whole show was from Tony's perspective, right? Yeah, it was his story. And his story ended when he died. You saw it from his perspective. Lights out.
He could have seen the gun in his face. Or the bat to
You
his
know,
The
head.
guy was
show-
behind him. He didn't.
A
The
show
guy
that
was
ended
behind him.
good- A show that ended good was Justified. I don't know if any of y'all watched that. But
That's Tim Oliphant.
yeah, and Walton Goggins, who played a great character.
That was a good character. I haven't seen the whole
You
thing.
know, they wrapped up the stories well, and I liked it.
Seinfeld ended well. They made fun of themselves for 2 whole episodes,
Yeah.
That was good. Breaking
Yeah.
Bad ends really good.
and they ended with the same conversation they started with, like buttons on a shirt.
Yeah. And even Breaking Bad, they came back and did that movie about. They didn't have to do that.
They do to make money.
Ruined it.
Oh, that was a tangent there. We're getting to our good word now.
Don't whack people.
Our audience is starting to know how educated we are on not much of anything.
Right.
So we're in the Blue Book of the Chosen, looking at chapter 12, anxiety, with a passage from Matthew chapter 6. We're looking at verses 31 through 34. It says, "Do not be anxious, saying, 'What shall we eat?' or 'What shall we drink?' or 'What shall we wear?' For the Gentiles seek after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them all. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble." So, well, it's a couple things here before we dig into some of this. I look at this anxiety in this passage, and I'm thinking about worry. And you know, the things that we could have in our head about, you know, I hope, you know, I'll tell you, my mom was a worrier. I did a lot of traveling, and I had responsibility for a factory in Norman, Oklahoma. She could be, and I traveled down there a lot, and she would watch the weather. And if there's bad weather in Oklahoma, she's texting me, "Are you in Oklahoma today? I'm so worried about," you know, I'm like, "No, I'm not in Oklahoma today. Like it's okay." So that's the worry thing. But I don't want to get that confused with the anxiety where there's a chemical imbalance. And so I have somebody it's in my family that has anxiety, and, you know, go to counseling, and we make sure that there's some things that are going on there that cause issues. This passage is not about that. It's about the worry. It's about I'm going to generate something that I fear about whatever else that's going on. And there's some good advice here that, you know, don't worry about tomorrow, because today's busy enough. You got enough stuff going on today, which I absolutely agree with. And then the alternative, instead of thinking about all that kind of stuff, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. So, and then we're talking about what you're going to eat and drink and things of that nature. And it says, if you seek first the kingdom of God, all these things will be added to you. So it's not all these things, like all the things that you want from a wish list, but your basic needs will be taken care of with that. And then there's another passage that they talk about, and this is from Matthew chapter 6. It's actually what leads up to this discussion, and I think it's very relevant. This is Jesus talking here. It says, "Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not more valuable than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life? And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, yet I tell you, even Solomon in all of his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will it not be much more to clothe you, O you of little faith?" And one of the things, if you look at nature, like birds, I hunt birds, some types of birds, not all birds, but they're always working. And one of the benefits or detriments that we have as humans is spare time. Yeah. And if you look at nature itself, we're in the springtime, the yards are starting to come alive, the trees are budding, my Bradford pear is about to explode with all the blooms, and, you know, there's just all this stuff that's going on. There's always something happening in nature. If you look at a bird's always busy. They're eating, they're building nests. We have those barn swallows that try to build nests on our front porch. You know, they get all that mud and all the whatnot. Time. They're always busy. And I think there's something to be said for that from a worry perspective. If you are not doing things, what's your mind? Your mind starts to race. right? Oh, I can't go to sleep. Well, and I'm worried about this. I'm, yeah, because you're just laying there. You're not busy. You're not having, and even with some of the clinical anxiety type stuff, some of the treatment is don't just sit there and think about it. Like get up and do something. You need motion. You need to exert yourself. You need to go do something. So I think some of the correlation as Jesus is talking about worrying, the correlation that he has is like you look at nature, they're not worried about it, but also they're not idle. Like they're busy.
Yeah.
So what I take away from that is, number one, you shouldn't just be worried about what's coming next and not taking care of what's in front of you. And number two, don't make it to where you're so bored that all you do is sit around and think about what else could be happening. Like, do stuff. Like, go out and be active, have something going on, get your hands busy, get your mind busy, go do some things. So, anyway, that's my good word.
It's good. I like it. Nothing good comes from boredom, especially in the age of technology and social media.
Yeah, that's not the doing something that I'm talking about is,
right.
Watch TikTok.
No.
Or whatever.
Get out and do something with your hands.
Snapchat.
Yeah.
Yeah, go get busy.
Yeah.
All right.
Good, man. Thanks for that.
Good word.
Broughton, thank you so much for filling in for Matt as he is out. We hope to have Matt back next week. We don't know if we will.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, and if not, we may be calling on you again.
All right. Well, just let me know.
And hopefully, maybe we'll throw some rules out there with, no notable mentions.
Well, beyond that, you have notable thoughts.
He's a thought, a mention, an honorable mention, or the actual top three.
Well, he didn't get an honorable notation, but a noteworthy thought would have been like Jimmy Smits.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What was he in?
One of the cops.
He was in Hill Street
He
Blues
was in
too.
He was in LA Law, NYPD Blues.
NYPD.
Like maybe Hill Street Blues.
No,
something.
I think he was with Dennis Franz in NYPD Blue.
He was in LA Law also.
I can't remember. LA Law with Corbin Burnson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Major League.
Seinfeld.
It was.
Yeah, he was in
When he was
Seinfeld.
there was a blurb with George talking to Corbin Burnson backstage at the Tonight Show. I got this great idea for a case to cover on LA Law, and then he goes on the Tonight Show and talks about an idiot he met in the back.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Hardheaded Podcast. Don't forget to share this podcast with others to help us get the word out.
Also, if you haven't yet, please rate and review the show. This helps our podcast show up in other people's suggested shows that may or may not have listened to us before.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.